Welcome to another episode of North London Is. Obviously, there was no Premier League football this weekend, so what Perry and I have decided to do is analyse minute by minute England's international game on Friday night, as it was a most thrilling game. No, only joking. We won't really be touching on England. They won 1-0. Obviously, a bigger game Tuesday night qualifier against Italy. But I don't know. Did you watch Friday night's game?
Not at all. Not at all. No. The only thing
in audio says it all.
No, all I wanted was to see that Declan Rice's name was not going to feature. Obviously, Saka we knew wasn't. I didn't even want Ramsdale to play. Irrelevant game.
Obviously, Arsenal withdrew Saka and obviously had a word about Rice, so they obviously get preference.
About time.
Treatment about with the time. English FA. Maddison obviously had to play. Fortunately,
Maddison played because he's in the second string, so that's why he played.
So what we're going to do on this episode is talk about obviously our first 8 games. Who's been good? Who's been bad? Have a look at what we sort of said at the beginning of the season and what we now sort of predict for the rest of the season. And as always, we'll be looking forward to next weekend's games. Arsenal have got a corker at the Bridge. So do you want to start off?
Yeah, well, Jules, really, I just wanted to kind of talk. I wanted to kind of reverse it a little bit and talk about Tottenham, top of the table, which is remarkable. I mean, let's be. I mean, joint top of the table. I mean, obviously
we're not joint. Okay. All this joint top on Twitter
at this stage of the season. I think everybody.
Remember when United shared the Premier League with Man City and
that was after 30, scored. That was after 38 games. You know, that was after 38 games. We played 8 games, and in fact, let's be honest, your 8 games,
mate.
I mean, we both live in North London-ish. Your 8 games is the equivalent of playing kind of Boreham Wood, Radlett, Neasden, Willesden. But coming back, the big serious, you know, for the minute, banter aside, you know, I've got to admit, you know, I hold my hands up. I think Ange has pleasantly surprised me, you know, number one, you're top because you've scored more goals. The 2 games, I guess our game, did I think we'd win? Yes. And I guess the other toughie you had, well, the other 2 toughies you had were at home to United and at home to Liverpool. Every other game apart from that, you've got to, you know, Burnley and Luton and Sheffield United and Bournemouth. I think even you'll admit you've got to win those. And I think you did even win those kind of games last season. But Maddison's been superb, no question. Van de Ven, it's like you've got a Porsche instead of having a Skoda, instead of Dyer and Sanchez. Udogie seems a good player. Not as good as all the Spurs fans are saying, but he definitely seems good. And I actually think Brandon Johnson is going to be a decent player for Spurs.
Well, we've hardly seen him. He played what?
Yeah, but I think that's a good.
And that's been it.
I think that's a good buy. Maddison's been the best player that Spurs have had this. You know, Spurs have had this season. Probably, maybe even so far this season, he's been the player of the season. Should be with the games you've had. But I think that the league table it's a little bit weird at the moment, isn't it? Because if you have a look at who Liverpool have played, you know, they've had a much harder start than even Arsenal. Admittedly, Arsenal have had some easy games as well. Our hardest game was obviously last Sunday. But no, I think Spurs, you know, I wanted to ask you, I think, you know, the only game I guess the 2 games that you would say we beat Liverpool, you didn't beat Liverpool. We know you didn't. We know you didn't beat Liverpool. I mean, that game...
We did 2-1, by the way, if you want to look at the record books.
I mean, that is just horrendous. But the Arsenal game, no question, 2-2, you deserved your draw. I don't think anybody actually deserved to win that game. If you actually have a look at the shots on target, both teams actually didn't have many shots. But I have watched you. I have watched you in all the other games. You know.
Yeah, I think with regards to the Arsenal game, I think, you know, I felt after the game, you know, though obviously before the game, be very happy with a point at the Emirates, especially considering our record there.
Yeah.
I felt if we didn't have to take Maddison off and Son, who obviously we didn't know at the time had been carrying an injury, hadn't finished the last 2 or 3 games for Spurs. I think possibly we would have gone on and won. But listen, injuries are part of the game. Rice, for some reason, didn't want to come out for the second half, probably because he was in Basum's pocket. But listen, talking about Spurs' 8 games, I mean, yes, I mean, obviously, all the games are going to be easy when all the teams that we played are below us because we're top of the league. So on paper, that they are going to be but joking aside, we've played 8 games. 5 of those, I hope you realise, have been away, and 3 of the teams that we played finished in last year's top 5, being Liverpool, yourself, and Man United. So. And the 2 games we dropped points, i.e. Brentford away and you away, both of them, funny enough, were goals were conceded to a dodgy penalty and a deflection.
Dodgy penalty? I saw Romero play at the World Cup for Argentina yesterday. He might as well have used his hands. No, come on.
You know some refs wouldn't have given that. Some refs 50-50 that. It was fired right at him. It was fired right at him. And you should have been down to 10 men anyway. So, but let's not talk about the Arsenal game.
Here's a question for you. Honestly. Do you think you would have beaten Liverpool if they hadn't have gone down to 9 men?
Well, interesting question. And it's one I've been asked quite a lot since then. I mean, Spurs do have the Premier League record from coming from behind. If we had gone 1-0 down and the goal, listen, I've said it before, should have been allowed, but they would have been 1-0 up against 10 men with an hour to go. So you can't say for sure Liverpool would have gone on to win. I think, I'm
asking you, do you think Spurs would have won? Do you think Spurs, forget all the sendings off. I think they weren't sending offs. You think they were. The goal, Diaz, we know it was the most corrupt decision in the history of football. Listen, before
the game, I would have taken the point all day long.
Exactly. And actually, what the point I'm saying to you is that game has made Spurs top of the table, okay? Because you've got an extra 2 points. And Liverpool have got a point less. And I think that's very, very relevant because, what I'm saying is it's so early. It's so early on in the season. Have Spurs played better than last year? No question. Especially when they've lost who I believe is one of the best centre forwards in the world. No question, Ange deserves credit for the way you're playing. Forget where you are in the league. The way you're playing, at least it's positive compared to Conte. Are you going to win the league? I would imagine not. Are you going to finish in the top 4? I still think it's going to be tough. However, I think a question I want to ask you is, honestly, when I read Twitter now, there are a minority of Spurs fans who think you can win the league. Obviously, you can't possibly think you're going to, win it. There are a few who think you can, but I think the majority of you are now saying we can definitely finish top 4. And I would say because of the start you've had, I think you've got to finish top 4, haven't you now?
Listen, at the beginning of the season with Kane going and all that, most pundits, professional people who know about football, predicted we'll probably end up, at best mid-table, at worst potentially fighting relegation. I never thought we'd fight relegation. I always felt we had better players than what Conte was getting out of them. And I think what Ange has done well is we brought obviously well during the summer. Maddison obviously is a standout buy. At 40 million bargain, probably the best signing so far of last summer. Our keeper's done very well. We needed to replace Hugo, who is strangely still at the club, bizarrely. Udogie, obviously we signed him last year, but we loaned him back last season. I think he's been very good. Van der Ven, as you touched on it, has been very good. And I think, having a decent centre-back has also brought out the best of Romero. And Ange has, apart from the signings, he's got Basuma playing to what we knew he could do when he was at Brighton. Sarr has become a regular, which is fantastic. Should Spurs finish in the top 4? You'd think with the start, 20 points after 8 games, 100%, a team should do. The thing that worries me is obviously our squad, which is nowhere near, big enough to compete for top 4. If we finish top 6, I'd be delighted. But listen,
can I ask you something? Can I ask you something
that will happen in January?
Yeah, I think January is going to be important for Spurs. They're going to have to buy. I think, and tell me I'm wrong, because obviously I don't know as much as you do, but Vicario, Porro, Van de Ven, Romero, Udogie, Sarr, Maddison, Basuma, Son, Richarlison, and
don't talk to me about Richarlison.
No, Son, Richarlison, and who's been the other player? Kulusevski. Am I right in saying that 95% of the time that's been your team?
Yeah, I mean, obviously as well as the starting 11, you've always got to think about who's going to finish the game. I mean, obviously Perisic has been ruled out pretty much for the season. Solomon, who has started brightly, I wouldn't say he's been phenomenal, but he's shown good promise. He played very well at Burnley with a few assists.
No, but do you think that's been one of the reasons why you're top is you've been able to play that 11?
100%.
So important,
and that comes back 100%, and that becomes one of my worries, because if we get a centre back injury, if we get a Maddison injury, if we get a Son injury, I don't think our backup, you say backup to Son is really potentially Richarlison, who, it's just.
And I think that's really important, because if we'll come on to Arsenal in a second, but if you look at Manchester City, they haven't had Rodri in the last 3 games, and they've lost every game.
Or De Bruyne.
Yeah, I mean, De Bruyne's not played since the first game of the season, but Rodri hasn't played for 3 games. And although they've got the best squad in Europe, look at what it's done to them. So I think if Spurs can keep their 11, 12 fit, I think you will, unfortunately, I have to say this, I think there's a very good chance you can finish in the top 4 if you can fit, if you can keep
your words to God did. Yeah, it's a big if, but yeah, I'm hoping.
Yeah, you're in the hand. Listen, you're looking at Argentina tomorrow night and hoping Romero doesn't get injured. I'm looking at Ghana's games and saw Partey went off last night after 45 minutes, but then my son tells me it was arranged. So, listen, Spurs have had a good start. No question.
Okay, let's talk about Arsenal. I mean, for 100 million, Declan Rice, and all he's really got to show is 1 deflected goal. You must be disappointed with his performances.
I think Arsenal have got to be very, very happy with where we are in the table, joint top. It's been the Arsenal reserves, hasn't it? It's been the Arsenal reserves. I mean, if we look at the team that started the second half against you, there was no Timber, there was no Rice, there was no Partey, there was no Martinelli. Saka was basically injured. No, look, let's be serious for a minute. I think Arsenal don't look as menacing as they did last season. What I do think I liked in the Manchester City game, in the Crystal Palace away game, and the Everton away game, which was probably our 3 most, obviously against you, that's really hard as well.
You dug deep.
We dug deep. We do look harder to beat with Declan Rice. He is just. I mean,
listen. I was pulling your leg about Declan.
Well, I know you were. But
I think he's a great player.
He's a great player.
That you actually needed.
Yeah. It's a player we've needed for years. He's got everything. Him and Bellingham for England, as far as I'm concerned, if Gareth Southgate doesn't get us to the final with those 2 in the middle of midfield and Saka and Kane up front, you could say we could have Foden, Grealish, even Maddison behind them, England. But no, Arsenal are looking very good. Joint top. We need 3 players to stay fit. We need Gabriel, Saliba, unbelievable, unbelievable player, and Declan Rice. Obviously, Saka and Martinelli are. I think they are.
Do you think you've got the goals in you to?
I do. I honestly, but yeah, I do. I think I don't rate Nketiah. I think he's okay. You know, I don't mean to have a go at him every week. I'm saying he's okay. Would he start for Spurs? No. Chelsea, no. Man United, no. Liverpool, no. Newcastle,
Man United, he might.
Yeah, you're right. He wouldn't really start for any of them. But Saka and Martinelli are absolute. They are. I mean, when Martinelli came on last week against Man City, I actually, funny enough, didn't think he was brilliant, but he completely changes the game because he's super quick and he's super, like, everything. It just changes, you know. So Arsenal, again, our next 2 away games, Chelsea away, Newcastle away, 2 tough away games. Chelsea beginning to find a bit of form.
Do you think with City losing their last 2 games, obviously against you and then previously away to Wolves, they've obviously still got. Is Rodri back for their next game? Maybe
Rodri's back now. Rodri's back.
You know, you've really got. They're not playing that well. They haven't played that well, I don't think, for a few games. Not just their 2 defeats. Now's really. I know you got 2 tricky away games coming up, but now is the time, because we all know after Christmas City get into that sort of machine.
Listen, Manchester City.
Now's the time to really try and kick on and get a good lead against City. No.
Yeah, I think the thing is that Man City have actually got a tough run now. They've got 7 or 8 games. I had a look at it while I was away. They've got a tough run of games. Before they played us, they literally, I think it was nearly as easy as Spurs' run of games. It wasn't quite as easy as that. But no, I think City are favourites. I mean, even against us, it was a very, technically the game was good, but there was very little chances. We cancelled each other out. We got a deflected goal. To be honest, we lost against them 12 times in a row. We deserved a bit of luck. We were the better side, no question, in the second half. I didn't see Haaland. I didn't know Haaland had played. I mean, literally came home, Saliba. He literally had, took off his shorts and Haaland fell out into the bath. But Arsenal are good. We're in a good place, but we've got Europe coming up now straight away. Sevilla home and away. West Ham in the Carabao Cup. I know that you've got a big game in the Carabao Cup coming up. Who are you playing? We're coming to your game in Europe in a minute, but who do you have in the Carabao Cup?
We purposely came out of that competition to concentrate on the league.
That's got to be a bit of a small point.
I think you're right to mention that. I think,
that annoyed you.
Mentioning the first 8 games review, as we have been, as much as Ange has got a lot of credit, he mucked up that evening. I went to Craven Cottage that evening, and he got it wrong. And he probably got it wrong because he probably thought more of the squad than he really should have. And he learned a harsh lesson that the squad isn't good enough. It's good enough maybe to make, 4, maybe 5 changes, but not 9.
He made 9 changes. Did he make 9 changes that night?
Pretty much. It was a very Son didn't start, Maddison didn't start. They came on towards the end. But, he made a lot of changes. And you just can't do that. But I was really annoyed that night. I went, going to midweek games, even if they're still in London, getting to Fulham from work, it's a lot of effort. And, it was just I was annoyed because realistically, we've only got 2 domestic trophies to go for. And we went out on a whimper, really, against Fulham.
Yeah, no, I was very pleasantly surprised, very happy you went out, because as much as I think we've got a very tough game, my boys.
And we knew it should have been tough because they got a point a few days earlier at the Emirates.
With their first team. I noticed they also played a few reserves that night. But we've got a tough game against West Ham in the Carabao Cup. But unfortunately, when you play West Ham or Spurs or Chelsea or whatever, it's annoying. I don't want to lose it. We'll rest players. But where Arsenal have had a bit of a nightmare, is losing to, and I didn't want to, I thought you would have mentioned this, is losing to Lens was a bit of a nightmare because we've now
I didn't want to
got,
go in too harsh. I think
we've got a hard game now.
You're still easily qualified from that conference group.
Well, it wasn't quite as conference as your one last year, but literally, we've got a tough game. And you see,
the one that we got thrown out of because we had 9 COVID attacks. You know,
well, yeah,
we don't get the luxury of you getting games postponed due to one COVID case. We're not Arsenal.
Spurs weren't going to do anything in that tournament anyway. We know that. But honestly speaking, Arsenal have got to play a full strength side now in Seville. I think we've got Sheffield United at home after that. And you know how hard Sheffield United at home can be. So that's where Spurs, I think, now in the next 2 months have to stay top or in at least top or top 4, because Arsenal, City, Liverpool, even Brighton, Newcastle, we're all in Europe. And then December and January, we've all got an even playing field because there's no more Europe until it starts again in February. And who knows if Arsenal are even going to qualify. So I think for Spurs it's important. As we're mentioning the other 2 sides, because I know time's ticking away, I've just seen the time. I think City, you're right. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, Stones is back now. I think Alvarez has been pretty good for them. Up until Wolves, they were walking it. But they've now, shown that without Rodri, they can be dodgy. I think Liverpool, I was having a walk yesterday with a very big Liverpool fan who says he's not sure. I think they're a big threat. I really think
I think Liverpool are a big threat. But I do not worry because, I hope they don't do as well as Spurs, obviously. I think their weakness, not weakness, but they don't look as strong at the back as they used to be. I think going forward, they'll score goals.
He's not the player he was, is he? He's not the dominant central defender. He was the best defender in the world. Everybody knew it. He's still very good.
I wouldn't rule out, after a bit of a shaky start, because they did have a tough fixture list, I wouldn't rule out Newcastle have now got a bit of momentum. They're getting results. I mean, that 4-1 at home to PSG will give them so much confidence.
Listen, Newcastle
coming up. I think you've got them coming up as well.
They drew at West Ham, and you've got to win the league. If you're 2-1 up with 10 minutes to go, you've got to go to West Ham and win. We know all about that last year. We were winning 2-0 at Liverpool. We drew. We were winning 2-0 at West Ham. We drew. There's circumstances. Liverpool and Newcastle, I don't think they've got many injuries. Newcastle are missing the guy they signed from Leicester, Harvey Barnes. But I agree with you. I wouldn't write Newcastle off at all. I don't think they're going to win it, but I think they can definitely finish top 4. And let's be honest, if Chelsea beat us this Saturday, they're right back in the mix for top 4. I
don't think you can rule out Chelsea because they've got such I wouldn't say phenomenal squad. They've got a big squad still, and you just don't know. They could click. I'm still
100%.
not sure they've got the goals in them to make a title challenge, but they've certainly got enough to get top 4.
And Cuckoo will be back after January. So let me ask you, Jules, what's your predictions now for title winners and top 4?
I think top 4. I'd love to say Spurs. I think I wouldn't have said Spurs top 6.
Are you going to play it down, or are you going to play it down?
I'm going to go. I'm hoping against hope we can do top 6. That may change if we keep on progressing and overachieving as we are. So top 6 would be a phenomenal result.
So you're playing it down?
No. Listen, we lost 30 goals in Harry Kane the day before the season started. And we finished 8th with him. So to finish 6th, top 6 without him would be unbelievable. Arsenal have to kick on from last season. I think anything over, not winning it, you finished 2nd last year, you've got to win it. You spent big. I'm not saying City didn't spend big, but
they spent more than us.
Yeah, but they also lost a lot. They lost a lot of players during the summer. I think Arsenal have to win it. I think, I know you're playing it down. What do you think will happen? I know you're playing it down, but
what do you think will happen? What's your prediction?
I think Arsenal could win it. Yeah, I don't think City are clicking.
Really?
Yeah, I think Arsenal could do it.
Very clever way of doing it. I think I've predicted on a Tottenham Arsenal group that Arsenal would win the league. If I was given £1 million, I would back Man City all night long. If I was given £50, I'd back Arsenal. But that would be very, very much dependent, and it always has been. I've said this for 30 years. It is going to be who can keep their players fit. And, we just don't know. We don't know. We don't know what it's going to be like. I wouldn't write off Liverpool. I think if they can keep that new hunger, I can never get his name right, so everybody takes the mickey out of me.
I know, it's an impossible. Did you see the goal he scored during the week?
He's a great power in that. And they've got 5 players up front. They've got Salah, Nunez, Diaz, Gakpo, and Jota. So they've got 5. Yeah. Arsenal have got the front 3 and maybe Trossard and a little bit of Nketiah. But Havertz. We're going to come on. I know you want to come on to very quickly now. Which has been the players of the season. And I was going to say for Spurs, I presume you'll say Maddison and possibly Van de Ven. Arsenal for me, Saliba and Rice. Superb.
Yeah. I wouldn't disagree with that, to be honest. I would say, obviously, for us, I think Van de Ven has been phenomenal. And I would go with him and obviously Maddison. I mean, Maddison has had 2 goals and 5 assists. Funny enough, all away from home. So, mind you, we've only played 3 at home, unlike everyone else.
The 5 games
interesting. Before we start talking about our predictions for next weekend, breaking news last night. I was pleasantly surprised to hear United doesn't look like they're going to get their Qatari money. And I think maybe not from this season. I think had they gone with the Qatari money, that could have been a game changer. That could have been their Man City moment or Chelsea moment. And I just don't. I think that's a big, big setback because even though they've got potentially this Jim Ratcliffe's investing, quite a lot for a 25% stake, it's nowhere near enough It's nowhere near enough for what United need, I don't think.
Manchester United's performance against us, I actually thought was okay. Their performance against you in the second half was diabolical. Their performances across the season have been absolutely shocking. I know they won their last game and they went mental, and they did a Spurs when you beat Sheffield United. But I think that Man United getting Qatari money, it would, unfortunately, I'd have to say this, I think it would be game over because if they are the biggest club in Britain. There's no question.
Well, the revenues they produce along with that income.
They need a lot, Man United. They need a lot of, they need Rashford, who I thought last season was brilliant. He's not playing
and
well.
Their keeper seems has a very poor start.
Keeper's not playing well. I know they've got injuries, though. I will say this. They have had injuries, and it would affect, Spurs without, let's just say we pull out Son, Maddison and Van de Ven of Spurs. You pull out Saliba, Rice. I don't know. You pull out Partey, Timber and Martinelli. Oh, hold on. Yeah, sorry. We've had all those 3 out. No, but being serious, if you pull out big players, it makes a difference. And so let's see. But I agree with you on that. I think that's a good point from you. I think Man United not getting the Qatari money is great. Tottenham, Fulham, Monday night at the Lane. 2 extra days rest for Spurs after the international break. Once again, giving you the advantage. I don't want to hear that you're going to Crystal Palace on the Friday night after that because you've got no European game, or unless you have. But we'll talk about the European games in a minute. Tottenham, Fulham. What is your prediction?
Listen, we should win that. I'm not an arrogant Spurs supporter, or as some people that watch the podcast think I'm entitled. We should win that. I'd be disappointed if we don't. So I would say 2-0 Spurs.
I will go. Oh, yeah. I actually agree with you. I think it'll be 2-0. I think it'll be 2-0.
And your game at the Bridge?
That's a hard game. That's a hard game. I think it's a hard game because Reece James is going to be
twice all season, Chelsea.
I know, but this is the last 2 games, isn't it?
Or 3 games. They beat Newton,
I think we'll win. I think we'll win. I think there might be a moment. There might be like, I think we might get the result 2-1. Obviously, very much dependent on who we've got available, who we've got fit. There's some big games as well. Everton, Liverpool, 12:30 on Saturday. And these players are all coming back from across the world. So it's going to be very, very interesting. I didn't make my prediction. Oh, sorry, I did make my prediction for the rest of the season. I do think Arsenal will finish second again. I think Man City.
Playing it down.
I think Man City will win it. My heart says Arsenal. My head says City. Do I think Tottenham will make top 4? I think you've got to now after the start you've made. Do I think you'll make top 4? I think the top 3 will be City, Arsenal, and Liverpool. So you're up against.
No, I agree with that 100%.
I think you're up against Newcastle, Chelsea. Brighton, Chelsea, and Man United,
and maybe Villa.
Villa are superb at home. Superb at home. Yeah. You don't get many results there. So it's going to be. Listen, I think it's going to be an absolutely and thank the Lord we've got please tell me we've got no more international breaks until next year.
I think there is one in November, funny enough.
Oh, no. God.
I may be wrong. But I think I've got a funny feeling it. I know, it's crazy.
It's horrific.
Listen, it's been a great episode. It's been good to catch up and look forward. If this is your first time listening or even watching North Londoners, let me just remind you we are on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and also YouTube now. So please do give us a follow, download, subscribe, like, comment, whatever. So until next week, I think next week we're going to do it after the Spurs Fulham game, which makes sense.
We'll do that Monday night. And
let's do that probably quite late Monday evening once I get back from the lane. So until then, have a good week. See you next week.